Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Blue Oval Podcast. My name is Garrett Zatlin. I know what you're thinking already. Oh my gosh, Garrett's doing the intro for the second week in a row. Has to be torture, and I understand. I know you all miss Ben. I do too. I promise he's out for good reason, but he'll tell you that when he gets back. In the meantime, I do have Maura Beattie with us, longtime TSR veteran. You've heard her before. Maura, thank you for filling in for Ben, who has been very flaky as of late.
Oh, no problem. It seems like it's about once a month I get the call or the text that, hey, you want to do the podcast? I'm like, I don't know. I go to bed really early. But here we are, 5:15 Central Standard Time, 1 hour from my bedtime.
Oh, perfect. I love that. This is about 7 hours from my bedtime. So we're all making it work. And I'm an hour ahead of you, by the way. Just throw that out there. Anyways, today we're going to go over scratch reactions. Pretty much the entries for the NCAA Indoor Championships D1 have come out. Now, admittedly, a lot of these entries, they basically are declared or intended to scratch. Now, these are currently under a coach's review, which is essentially saying, hey, did any of these entries here, should they've been a scratch instead of accepted, or were they accepted instead of a scratch? Are there any medical scratches? Things of that nature. But for the most part, this is generally what we can expect. I've only ever seen one instance, at least on the middle and long distance side, where something has had to be corrected. So generally speaking, this is it. But keep in mind, there is a slight chance that maybe one thing changes. But for the most part, this is it. Before we get started, ratings and reviews. We had none. It
No,
would be great.
I told you my 5-6 period. I'm a teacher. 7 people were listening to it instead of To Kill a Mockingbird yesterday.
Well, tell them to leave a rating and review. That's what you
Well,
got
they told me, they're not supposed to be on their phones. So
to.
tomorrow when I go back, I'm like, okay, now you can go rate and review because by the time we speak tomorrow, this podcast episode will be released.
I love that. I love that. Well, hey, kids, hope you're all doing well. Thank you if you do leave a rating and review. I'm sure she'll give you extra credit. Anyways, let's begin, Maura. We have a handful of surprising scratches, non scratches, a handful of athletes getting in, not getting in. We have notes already set up here. What do you want to go over first?
You know, I'm gonna say the men's 800.
Yeah.
I've got to
Okay.
go with that one.
Let's chat about it. Nathan Green is not running the mile.
That was the reason why I wanted to start here.
He's not running the mile. He's running the 800. This is a guy who was the 1500-meter national champion, and he says, no, I'm running the 800. Right off the bat, do you like it?
You know, I think the reason I like it is I think I kind of like what Washington's doing here.
Okay.
They have got the 800 covered with green. They've got the mile covered between I'm fairly
Wascom and Hauser?
yeah, Wasserman Hauser, and then Hauser is still in the 3K, and they have a DMR.
Yep.
So they've covered every distance. So they're trying to gun for that podium again.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that's exactly what this is. This is a play for points because I think, and you've probably seen this too throughout the season where the projected team points that this team can get is pretty substantial, right? And I think you look at the men's 800 field. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't necessarily love this year's men's 800 field. I'm glad you are kind of shaking your head. I don't love it. And when I see that Green's the second seed at 146.5, I go, yeah, I don't think he's beating Busy Mana, but I think I like him to get silver. Am I wrong?
No, you're not.
Good.
This race is it's like when I looked at all the different all the scratches and the athletes who are declaring for events, this one was like still the most wide open in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Bizimana has got the 145 this season. He contested the off distance K at the Big 12. So we haven't seen him race an 800 since earlier this season, but all these guys behind him are just as hungry. I mean, there's 11 guys who have run 146 or
Yeah.
that's a crazy amount because that's not a lot of time in between 146.5 for Nathan Green and then Finley McLear's 146.97. You fit 10 guides in between them?
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I still, yeah, despite some of that congestion, I think I still like it, and I think he'll take advantage of it. And I guess let me put it this way: on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being extremely confident, how on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that Nathan Green can beat Busy Mana?
Were you saying 10 is the most confident?
10, you're like, I think he absolutely can beat him, and one is like not even a chance in the world.
I think I'm gonna go maybe like a 7.
Oh, okay,
I
okay,
think
and
what helps Green here is his strength
yeah. Mhm.
compared to Bizimana, who is your more speed-based 800 runner, your true 800 runner. So I think that's gonna be the difference maker on this race.
Ooh, that's interesting. And just to clarify, you're not necessarily saying that you view Green as the favorite, but just in terms of how reasonable you think he can upset Busy Mana, correct?
Yeah, I have no idea who's gonna be the favorite right now, just looking at this quick glance.
Oh no, it's gonna be Busy Mana. It has to be Busy Mana, right?
Um,
Do
there's
you?
always a dark horse somewhere in here. I
Yes. Well, sure. Is there a dark horse? Yes. But I think it's very fair to say that Busy Mana, as the defending champion, the only guy who has gone under 146 via conversion this year, I think I do like him as the favorite. I think it's
one thing
pretty
you gotta
clear.
remember, the technicality last year. There was the
Yes.
disqualification.
Yes. Okay. But he was. He was this close to winning, anyways,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. But I get what you're saying. All right. Let's move off of that. I don't think there's anything further here in the 800, although I will say, Hassan not scratching, Kipiego not scratching, um, Matsata, Murphy, McClear, all these guys, Nick Plant, all these guys are not scratching, meaning that the DMR is maybe a little bit less viable for them. It's still possible, just
Yeah.
something to throw out there. Um, Carley Thomas, you and I differed on this. I thought she was going to run the mile. You thought she was going to run the 8. Um, Take your victory lap and tell me why I was wrong.
Oh, because you're always wrong. Uh,
All
that's
right,
basically
thanks everyone. This was a great podcast. Leave a rating and review.
no. So, um, I think the mile is just a little bit more congested right now
Yeah,
at the top. And I don't, yes, Carly Thomas has the speed that some of these milers don't have due to her quick closing speed, but I think she's more primed for the 800. She does have the 159 PR.
true.
That's putting her right up there along. I mean, can we say she can beat Michaela Rose?
No,
You don't think so?
no.
Okay. But do you see her in the top 3?
Yeah, I could see her top 3.
Okay.
I think that's realistic. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll put it this way. I think I saw more upside in the mile, but I think I see a little more definitiveness, if that makes sense, in
Mhm.
the 800. Like, I think I know what I'm going to get from Thomas in theory, like, knock on wood. I've said that before. But, I think a top 6 finish for her is a very comfortable, pretty safe prediction for her, right? But do I think she's going to beat Rose? No, I don't. I think she could get second. I think Whitaker and Willis still have going to have something to say about that. Whereas the mile, would I take Ramsden over her first? Yes. Would I take May over her first? Maybe. I would have taken Vatu, who we'll talk about in a second. Jep Curry, you could argue that you'll take someone. Depends on what you think about Asakal. Asakal's looked better tactically as of late, especially after SECs. So my thought process is, though, that if she were to run the mile, you get a little bit more of that tactical factor. And I don't know if she's really been pushed to the mile yet this season. And that was kind of my thought process. So am
Is
I
there
wrong?
I haven't looked at the schedule since I wrote, our rankings the other day.
Right.
Which race has more rest time between
Well, the mile does.
okay,
The
so
miles, I think, are one of the very first prelims.
okay.
So here, I'll even send this over to you as we're chatting. But yeah, so the mile, like, and that's the other part of this, right? I thought she would do the mile because of the DMR component that you could get more rest for, right? So she runs the mile, comes back, and then she can run the DMR. But with other scratches happening elsewhere, specifically in the 800, Marlena Pry, the other one who wouldn't have gotten in anyways,
Mhm.
but she did scratch, meaning okay, so even if she was going to get in, she wasn't going to take that spot, which leads me to believe that Pry will be on that DMR.
Yeah,
But if Thomas is not in the mile, therefore getting much, far little rest, then I would think that Forrester is the one doubling back from that mile and on that DMR.
yeah.
So
In the 800 still, did you have any surprises that still declare? Because obviously looking at it, all 16 in the top 16 have declared. Was there a surprise for you?
there, you could maybe argue. Oh, I didn't even notice this one. How did I not notice this? It's Maggie Congdon.
Yes, that was my surprise.
How did I not see this?
I don't know, she's
And she's entered in both.
yes!
That I'm wondering if that's is she gonna try that?
I don't I mean, Danny Jones was gonna try it back in, what, 2020 before we had COVID?
Great catch. I didn't even see that.
Yeah, that's
I wonder that makes me wonder if that's gonna be like a hey, that's like an error or something like that, because that's an aggressive double, right? And I just sent you the schedule. So on Friday at like 4 p.m. or no, I'm sorry.
yeah. Oh,
Oh no, I'm
that's
sorry. At 7 p.m. because it goes men first, all the events, then
yeah,
women, all the events. So at 7 p.m. the mile is the mile prelims. Then at 7:50, less than an hour later, is the 800-meter prelims.
yeah.
That's an aggressively hard double. Do I think she can do it? Yeah, I think it's possible. Um, wow, what was your thought process when you saw that?
I didn't really peg her as an 800 runner. She's just been on fire this indoor season.
Yeah.
She did not have the times of her 2:02 and then the 4:30 she ran 4:30 in the mile.
Hmm.
She did not have those times prior to this season.
Nope.
And now she's kind of like the rising star of Northern Arizona. And she's only I mean, she's a senior, but I have to check back on her eligibility wise.
Yeah, in terms of like where else, like because sometimes they list as a senior and it's a little
Yeah.
waivers and something like that. Like her spring eligibility might be different. Um, I do think she's at least near the end. I will say, I
Yes.
do think that's somewhat accurate. So yeah, that's surprising. That's shock. I can't remember. I think you were right. I think Danny Jones was someone who was going to try that, um, if I remember correctly. But yeah, this is surprising. Man, and that's yeah, that really kind of caught me off by surprise. We'll
Yes,
have to
I
see how
didn't.
that goes. Everyone, just make note of that. If that's an error in submission, that might get corrected. But if they're really going for that mile 800 double, God bless her. Good luck. Um, Gabija Gavadite is the only other one that I thought if Oklahoma State wants to, if they want to scratch Japkiri from the mile, Rowe from the 5K, and Gavadite from the 8, they could go all in from the DMR, and I would pick them to win the DMR.
But they didn't do that.
I know. That's all I'm saying. That's the only other caveat, the other little thing that I could have thought of. But other than that, no other surprises. Do you have any?
No, it was Maggie Congdon. That's why I was curious what your reaction was, and I'm glad I got like the full reaction.
Yeah, that was good. I didn't even notice that. Let's actually go back to that mile. Amina Maatoug scratches out of the mile for the 3K. Do we like this?
I do. She obviously has the speed with her 4:29 mile, but
Mhm.
she's definitely more of your 3K runner. She's
I wouldn't
been up
disagree.
there. I mean, her kick is gonna help, and she's gutsy.
Yeah.
She just goes. So, and I mean, she was ninth in cross country. She's been up there before.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't dislike it. I think really the selling point for me is the mile's crowded. I still would have thought of her as like a fringe title contender in the mile. I really would have. But the mile's crowded, and a lot of the top contenders in the 3K, almost all of them are going to already have one race in their legs. You know, Markovic is going to have the DMR the night before. Volby's going to have the 5K the night before. Ramson's going to have the mile, presumably finals, right?
Yeah.
The day. So, and then you got Jep Curie, who will probably have the mile finals as well.
Maddie
So,
Elmore, doesn't Oregon have a DMR?
correct. Yes, Maddie Elmore would have a DMR there. I'm sure there's one or two other names, so I'm just completely not thinking of.
Olamon,
Um,
Hilda Olamoy
yes, Olamomwe and Doris
will have the
Lemongol.
5K, like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be, like, she may be one of the fresher of the ones up there.
Would you take her as would you take her right now to win?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. I just wanted to see.
No. I think you kinda know where I'm leaning towards based on
Yeah, I know.
our
I know where
Slack
you're leaning towards. Oh
conversations.
yes, I'm very well, and I don't totally disagree with you, and that's for everyone to find out in our predictions on the site probably next week. By the way, um, okay. So just before we move off of this, Amina Maatoug scratching the mile. Are you surprised?
You know, I'm not. She tried to do that mile 3K double
Yeah.
last year,
Hmm.
and she kind of faltered. This year, putting all your eggs in one basket seems to be the move she's going for, which
Yeah.
is the smarter of the 2 moves.
Yeah. And I think not having a DMR helps that decision a lot. Like I
Yes.
wonder what would happen if they had a DMR. And they had to put her in there. Maybe they do it. I don't know. I don't think they did it last year, but that's because she was already doing the mile 3K double.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, let's see where else we got. Liam Murphy of Villanova. This guy has been killing it this year, has been having a fantastic season, fantastic year, actually. He was in the 5K, he scratched the 5K. I don't think either of us are surprised about that. I think we thought, cool, that's about right. But after running the 3K national qualifying time in what was largely a time trial scenario at the Big East Championships, he decides to scratch from the mile to go fresh all in for the 3K. He has run 3:53 in the mile twice this season. He scratches out of the mile and he tries to go all in for the 3K. Two questions. One, on a scale of 1 to 10, how surprised are you? 10 being most surprised, 1 being least surprised. And then two, do you like this? Do you like this move?
I'm gonna go 3.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm not at all surprised. We
Really?
Yeah, we already knew the mile was loaded up front. You've got Washington in there. You got to link about those team tactics. You got Isaac Baston in there, who somehow always finds his like little way around in
Yeah,
the
he does.
field. And then in the 5K, you've got Nico Young. You've got those top guys from some of the altitude schools. You've got Stanford's Robinson up there and Parker Wolf. Where was his best opportunity to get them all when they are tired?
Mm.
In the 3K.
I kind of actually like that a lot. It's like a very good way to market that. Yeah. So let's if you look down the list right now, Robinson would double, Las Harris would double, Wolf would double, Young would double, Brian Massow if he does the DMR would double, Shoppy same deal with him. Strangio is not. He's like one of the few fresh guys. Anas would double, Quacks would double, Hauser would double, Samuel would double. Abdallah would not. Malarkey, I think he's in the 5K too. Yes.
Um,
No, he's not. He's not. He did not make the five. No, he did not make the 5K. So he'll be fresh there. Mayer will be off the double, and Langon will be fresh. So you're right. All of the major top names will likely be doubling.
yep, you're welcome.
I can't wait till we're potentially having an intern. Not potentially, we will likely be having an intern this summer, and I can't wait for her to like understand all the sassiness that like you give me every day.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, let's move off of that. Leah Murphy. I was surprised. I thought the mile was his best choice. I even said in our scratch predictions. I'll give it a 6 as surprise factor. Um, and I think you've convinced me that I think it's the right move. Graham Blank scratches out of the 5K, which means he's out of the national meet. I think we probably saw this coming. There were rumors. Again, we have not found concrete evidence of this, but rumors that he's hurt. You can see on his Strava he's doing a lot of bike rides. So I don't think we're surprised. But
No.
I
After
mean,
him not racing the 3K at BU a few weeks ago, you're like, okay, something's up here. There was that workout video that someone released, but you don't know when that was filmed.
mhm.
So, and usually you at most of the time you run another race before you go to nationals.
was was he the biggest threat to Nico Young?
Um, you know, that's a good question. I actually think that his big Nico Young's biggest threat in the 5K will come from Kai Robinson.
Hmm.
Kai Robinson is the defending outdoor 5K 10K champion, so clearly he can run those two races back to back and or like the day in between, but still feel perfectly fine.
Well, he did do an interview with Ben. I don't know if you saw that, where he was like, "I did not want to do that 5K on the double." Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, well, the 5K is the first day, luckily, right?
yes.
And so that won't really be a factor.
And I know you can like we can already make the prediction. It's not going to take a sub 13 race.
No,
The
no.
men historically are a little more I don't know if I want to say it like how to say this like in a good way. The women in my mind seem to always go more out.
Yes, I agree.
They race honestly.
Yes,
The men particularly don't. They play cat and mouse.
that's a
They
great way
wait
of
to
putting it.
see who's going. So it's like you gotta watch. Yes, Nico Young has that mile speed that he's flexed for us earlier this season. But what about these other guys? If you get them in a kickers race,
Yeah,
oh,
I don't disagree. I think my only thing is who's going to make it aggressive, who's going to make it fast, and
have Tom Samuel of New Mexico.
exactly, bingo. Or it's going to be the NAU guys trying to set up Nico.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would happen, or Peter Maru of
Yes.
Arkansas. So something to consider there. We'll move off of that. Oh gosh, let's see. Ronan McMahon-Staggs was in a back end national qualifying position. Would have gotten into the national meet, no problem. He was an automatic qualifier in the miler, in the mile with a 3:54 mile time. This season, he scratches, which we presumably mean that, or guess that means he's going to go for the DMR. So, what is Washington men's DMR going to look like in your eyes? Because remember, Green's on the 8. That's the least amount of time between the DMR, but Wascom and Hauser are in the mile. Do
And
they?
Hauser's in the 3K.
And Hauser's in the 3K, correct.
Oh, let's see here. I mean, you do have Leo Das
Yeah, Dashbach.
Dashbach. He is a miler who's
Hmm.
run sub 4 and McMahon-Staggs has run sub 150 on the 8. But he could also run the 12 leg.
You could.
So does that mean could Green be their miler?
Do you think Green's
Um,
going to double back after the 8? Wouldn't it make more sense for Wascom?
that would make sense because Wascom is running the mile prelim. See, it's all up in the air because I'm just still shocked Nathan Green's running the 800.
I
Okay,
know. I know.
don't even get me started on the DMR yet.
I know. Yeah, that's really where the DMR is kind of like that one thing that messes up everything.
Yeah,
Um, so,
because I think it's
um,
fair to say Hauser's not going to be in it.
yeah, I agree. I think it's unlikely, I would say.
Yes.
I think it's
Okay.
unlikely. Um, Riley Chamberlain scratches the mile, which makes me think that, well, so she's in the 3K. We know she's in the 3K, but she scratches the mile, which is interesting because she was listed at the 10th seed, scratches out. So does that mean that they're going for the DMR? And if so, who's on that DMR? Because Megan Hunter did not scratch out of the 8.
Um, I can never really figure out what Diljeet Taylor's like doing.
I never
Mhm.
have an idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense for Riley Chamberlain to go in the 3K because she will be racing with what? She'll get to race with Lexi Holiday Lowry and Sadie Sargent.
Hmm.
The Cougars run well when they're together.
Yeah, that's true.
And so there is that. And as we've said, the mile's pretty heavy up front. So I don't know
But
if
we
they
do
will.
think she's going to run the DMR.
Yes, I think she's running the DMR because I don't think they wanted a race in her legs going into the DMR.
Oh, on day 2. You don't think they wanted a finals
Yes.
round? Interesting. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they would try to maximize the points out of that and just say, go try to get the most points out of the mile. We've already got 2 women in the 3K, a few others in the 5K. We can muster up a pretty decent DMR without a lot of, these women who we're mentioning. Megan Hunter can maybe be an All American, a back end All American. I thought from a points optimization standpoint, they would have kept Chamberlain there. Do I understand why they kept her off to put her in the DMR? I do. I will be interested to see who those other legs are in that DMR.
Yeah, it will be an interesting one, but they did get in the mile. I'm fairly confident that you posted. They did get Carmen Alder in the mile.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So they're gonna get. They would have had Lowry too, like yeah, but she
Yeah.
scratched out of that, which makes sense. Which makes me wonder if she's going to be the other leg, or is it going to be
So,
Sadie Sargent?
um, Lexi Holiday Lowry, isn't she in both? She's in both the 3K and the 5K, Garrett.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. That's right. You're right. You're right.
I don't
That makes
see
more
that one
sense.
being a massive triple.
No, you're right. Well, I don't know. Who knows? No, you're right. You're right. I'm just only playing. Um, yes, I forgot that she's in the 5K. Good catch. So I think that means that it would be Sadie Sargent then on that 12, like she was back at BU.
I see Megan Hunter racing the DMR.
You think she's coming back from the 800 prelim?
I think she would.
Hmm, interesting.
BYU doesn't really have like they're they're a deep team top to bottom when it
Yeah.
comes to the 800 to the 5K. But when you take out Hunter and then I mean Riley Chamberlain does have the next fastest 800 this season for them with her 203, but then all their jumps all the way down to 206 and then their next best is Kirsty Solomon with 206.
Hmm.
You can't really risk a 206 when you're trying to win the DMR.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just depends on how effective you think she's going to be coming back off the double. If you
Yeah.
think, well, she's going to split 204, 205, this is a different story. So I'm not in 100% confident I know exactly what I'm getting there. Um, so yeah, that'll be interesting. Okay, getting towards the tail end here. Few others that I maybe didn't touch on. Taylor Rowe, I thought she would scratch the 5K for the DMR, come back in the 3K. I thought that would have made more sense. I get why she didn't. Um, I'm not too surprised there. And then Molly Hudson scratches the mile, presumably for the DMR, I guess, because she's not qualified in anything else. Any thoughts on those two?
Um, you know, I'm kind of surprised that we didn't see more scratches in the women's 5K
I agree.
because after last weekend, we clearly saw Parker Velby is healthy. I mean, I
Hmm.
did see some KT tape on her lower leg. So I did notice that because you're always watching because she's somebody who is a little more fragile when it comes to running on the
Right.
ground. But it's just surprising because we know that she just goes. She doesn't care what the race does
No.
behind her. They could be having like a party and she wouldn't even care if she wasn't invited. She's having her own up front.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's why I was very surprised to see this because we know that Valby's not going to hold anything back. She never really does.
Yeah. And so
So
there's not. Go ahead. Go ahead. I didn't even cut you off.
so it's just a little interesting. Now I can see Doris Lumnagel and Amy Bunnage maybe a little bit more trying to go in for the 5K. But for some of these other women who could have focused on the 3K when they knew they had a qualifying spot, it's like, well, why not try and go for another title in a
Yeah.
different event where you know the chances in the 3K are a little more open?
Would like to emphasize a little, just
Yeah.
because between Parker Volby and Olivia Markovic, the chances, or in Ramsden maybe off the double in a tactical race, I don't know, but like when I say like a little bit better, I only mean like this much better.
Oh, yes.
Um, but I'm with you. I thought it would have. I thought for Roe's sake, it would have made the slightest bit more sense to do DMR 3K. I don't hate this. I'm not like, oh my goodness, yeah, it makes total fine sense. Like she's one of the fastest 5K runners ever indoors. Of course, the top 4 or 5 seeds all are. So yeah, let's see. Did I miss anything else? I'm gonna try to go through a few others here. Try to figure out if I missed anything.
We know Maddie Elmore scratched the mile.
Yeah, so like if here's a handful of I'll go through a few ones that are predictable that we kind of already knew, don't need to discuss. Olivia Markovic scratches out of the mile, makes sense. She wants to do DMR 3K. Nico Young out of the mile, Hatton Samuel out of the mile, Parker Wolf out of the mile, Theo Quacks out of the mile. All of that makes sense.
Yeah.
Looking through the men's 5K again, Graham Blanks again, like we already said, is out. Pretty straightforward. I'm trying to see if there's anything more in the women's that was, I guess, a little bit more predictable. Juliet Whitaker scratching the mile for the 800 makes plenty of sense. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, there were very few scratches up near the top. I mean, in the document we've got going, I mean, it took the race with the most scratches was the women's and men's miles.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't sure. I was like, there's either going to be like a 1 or 2 scratches. Well, for the women, the women's a little bit different than the men. I
Yeah.
knew the men were going to get 4, no doubt.
Mhm.
But the men go super deep now. Like, let's chat about that real quick.
They go
The
to
men,
23.
it goes down to 23, and the women actually go deeper to 24. But Carson Williams is right now projected to be the last guy in based on this, which also means that Parvez Khan, the Florida freshman star who just upset Anas Asai at SECs, he's set to now make the meet.
I'm really glad he did get in.
Yeah, so did I.
I was watching it after he ran really fast a few weeks ago prior to because he's run like what sub 4 the last like 3 meets he's
Yeah,
been
he's gone like 359, 56, 55, and then just won the upset
yeah,
title.
so when he ran the 356 I was like, okay, I really hope he gets in because we've been seeing like the rise of Florida distance
Mm-hmm.
these last few seasons. It was pretty slow moving, but recently it's like starting to like go up that curve. And
Yeah,
Khan is the start of it for the men. Valby for the women, Khan, and then Sam Austin for the men.
yeah. Sam Austin more on that 800 side, middle distance crew. But here's a one small note that I noticed also in these men's entries is Brian Massell would have scratched out after Carson Williams if he got in. So the first man out for those who wanted to try to actually get in is Elliot Cook of Oregon. Elliot Cook is an A, as in he's declaring he wants to get in. Oregon wants him in there. The thing is that he hasn't run a race since December 2nd.
Yeah.
So he's not, obviously it doesn't look like he'll be getting in unless something last minute drastic changes. But I just found that surprising that you would list someone to declare for the national meet with a chance of getting in, a small chance, but a chance of getting in, and yet they haven't raced since December 2nd.
Isn't it just surprising that Oregon doesn't have a single male going in any of they don't have the 800-mile 3K 5K DMR.
Wow, no, it never hit my mind.
It's
I
just something cuz like they used to with like the Edward Cheserek like legacy area, like era, they were always there. Cooper Tier, Cole Hawker, and now there's no Oregon distance runners.
Ooh. I did not notice that.
Yeah.
Oh, that is. Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right.
What, insane
I
with maybe Notre Dame?
Notre Dame does not. I want to double check. I don't want to just spew things that we don't know, but yeah, Notre Dame men.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few programs, and I will say, I do think injuries play a role.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, like the coaches, just coaches and programs and athletes, they just kind of get unlucky. Like I'm, from what I've heard Oregon has been a little nicked up, here and there. So, and I know I think Notre Dame, one or two guys have also had a few
It's
challenges. So
also it's also just so hard to qualify for indoors. When you only take 16, you have to bring your A game at those big meets and sometimes even at those little meets that you go to.
true. True, but yeah, and it'll be interesting because now Oregon is going to be moving to the Big Ten with Washington, and Washington's great about late season high octane racing, and Oregon historically has in the past. But for the most part, I think Oregon now has a little bit more incentive to be a little bit more aggressive at the Big Ten championships in the future. So, okay, what did I miss? Are we all good? Did we wrap it up?
I think we did. I think we hit everything that, aside from your little bullet points. I would like to shout out Alex Phillip did make the 5K final,
Yeah.
the D3 talent who is clearly showing he can race with the big dogs in D1.
Yeah, I'm happy for him because he's been competitive with them for the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, he really has in varying extents. So yeah, happy he got in. But all right, anything else?
No, I think we're all good.
Cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, rating and review Apple, Spotify. You can go subscribe on YouTube. Go watch us there. We're also going to be putting out a handful, and by a handful, I mean a lot of content on the site. Maura and I are wrapping up D1 rankings. We're actually going to hopefully be posting them late tonight. It's Monday the 27th, or Tuesday the 27th, excuse me. We're going to be posting those tonight, and then national meet previews. We're going to cover every entrant, every name, male, female, 800-mile, 3K, 5K, DMR, in D1, D2, D3. We're going to use every preview for every event, for every race there over the next week and a half, 2 weeks. So go check that out. Predictions will be on the site next week. In the meantime, that's all I got. Maura, thank you for joining me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'll see you next month.